This is a fictional story created for entertainment and reflection. Any resemblance to real people or events is purely coincidental. My sister banned me from her wedding, not because we had a falling out, not because I caused a scene, but because she claimed her fiancé had feelings for me. I'm Michelle, I'm 20, and I found out I wasn't invited to my own sister's wedding from my grandparents. When I finally asked her why, she didn't hesitate. She said my presence would make things uncomfortable. She said Jonathan acted different around me. She said it was better if I stayed away. I laughed at first. It sounded too ridiculous to be real. Jonathan and I barely spoke outside of family gatherings. There was nothing secret, nothing inappropriate, just basic conversation, basic kindness. But in my family, kindness toward me has always been suspicious. And this wasn't really about a wedding. It was about who gets protected and who gets erased. I've never been good at pretending I fit into my family. Emily was always the easy one. She knew how to perform the role they wanted. Confident, social, impressive in the ways my parents valued. I was different, quieter, more inward. I noticed things instead of commanding rooms. Growing up, that difference was treated like a flaw that needed correcting. Dinner conversations rarely included me. They revolved around achievements, plans, shared interests I didn't have. When I spoke about something that mattered to me, the response was polite nodding. Then the topic shifted back to them. Eventually, I stopped trying. What hurt wasn't just the lack of understanding, it was the absence of concern. As I pulled away, no one asked why. No one checked in. No one seemed bothered by my quiet disappearance. It taught me something early. In this family, attention was conditional. Emily received praise without asking. I received commentary. Small remarks, easy to dismiss individually. But together they built a story about me. Too sensitive, too dramatic, too complicated. If something felt uncomfortable, the assumption was always that I caused it. If someone was annoyed, I was the easiest explanation. I could feel it in the way my mom's eyes lingered a second too long, like she was waiting for me to start something. And my dad would suddenly get philosophical, talking about loyalty and respect and how families stick together, even when no one had asked him. By the time I left for college, the distance felt natural. I didn't move out in anger. I simply stopped placing myself where I felt invisible. I spent breaks elsewhere, with my grandparents, traveling, anywhere that didn't require me to shrink. When I did come home, I felt like a guest, welcomed politely, kept at arm's length. Emily and I never shared the sisterhood people expect. She didn't dislike me openly. She simply didn't make space for me. And my parents followed her lead. They weren't cruel in obvious ways. They were dismissive, which somehow felt worse. So when Jonathan entered the picture, nothing about him stood out at first. He was just Emily's partner, present at holidays, polite, unassuming. But during one family gathering, something felt different. He asked me questions. He listened to the answers. He didn't talk over me or redirect the conversation. It was subtle, almost forgettable. Except in my family, that kind of attention toward me was unusual. I didn't interpret it as interest. I interpreted it as basic human decency. Emily noticed. And in a family where roles are rigid, any deviation feels like a threat. I didn't know it yet. But the moment someone treated me like I belonged, the narrative they'd built about me began to crack. And cracks make people nervous. It started with one normal holiday dinner. Christmas at my parents' house is usually predictable. Same table, same stories, same feeling that I'm hovering at the edge. Jonathan was there, Emily's fiancé. I'd seen him before at holidays, but that night was different in one small way. He talked to me like I was a real person. He asked about school, travel, work, just regular questions. Nothing private, nothing secret, nothing that should have mattered. But I noticed it anyway, because in my family being noticed is rare. Emily noticed too. At first, it was just looks, quick glances, a stiff smile, that quiet, tense energy that makes you second-guess yourself. I tried to ignore it. I told myself she was stressed. Planning a wedding can do that. Later that night, she pulled me aside, not gently, not to check in, to accuse. "I know what you're doing," she said. I stared at her. "What are you talking about?" She didn't hesitate. "You're trying to take my boyfriend. You've always been jealous of me." It was so extreme I actually laughed. Not to mock her, just disbelief. I told her she was wrong. I told her nothing was happening. I told her we were having basic conversation at a family dinner. She wasn't listening. "He's acting weird around you," she insisted, "and you're being too nice." Too nice. In my family, that phrase has always meant one thing: stop trying to exist. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't defend myself for an hour. I walked back into the living room and made myself small again. I told myself it would pass. It didn't. After that night, things shifted in quiet, uncomfortable ways. Emily started avoiding me like I was contagious. If I said hi, she answered with one word. If I asked anything, she acted like I was bothering her. At gatherings, she stayed glued to Jonathan's side, her hand on his arm, her body positioned like a barrier. Jonathan didn't do anything different. That's what made it worse. He stayed polite, friendly, normal. No flirting, no awkward tension, no guilty behavior. Just the same basic decency. And somehow, that made Emily more convinced she was right. Then my parents joined the story, without ever saying my name. My mom started watching me with that look, like she was waiting for proof. My dad got suddenly preachy. Comments about loyalty, about respect, about knowing your place. Nobody accused me directly, they didn't have to. The message was clear. Emily had decided I was the problem, and my parents were comfortable with that. Weeks went by like that. Then I found out Emily was officially engaged. Not from her, not from my parents, from my grandparents. They called like it was normal news. Like of course I'd already been told. I stood in my kitchen holding my phone, feeling that old stomach drop I knew too well. Even then, I tried to be fair. Maybe she was overwhelmed. Maybe it slipped her mind. Maybe she assumed someone else would tell me. Days turned into weeks. Nothing. No invite, no message, no acknowledgement. Then Emily called. Her name on my screen felt strange. We hadn't spoken since that Christmas accusation. I answered carefully, like I was picking up a call from someone I barely knew. She did a few minutes of stiff small talk. Then she said it. "I'm not inviting you to the wedding." I went quiet, not because I was desperate to go, because hearing it out loud still hurt. I asked her why. She said it like she'd rehearsed it. "Jonathan has feelings for you," she said. "It'll be uncomfortable." I let out a short laugh I couldn't stop. Not cruel, just stunned. "Emily," I said, "that's not real." She didn't soften. She didn't ask questions. She didn't even sound uncertain. She'd already written the version of me she needed. The sister who ruins things. The sister who reaches for what belongs to her. I told her I wasn't interested in Jonathan. I told her I would never do that to her. I told her she was creating a problem out of thin air. She didn't care. So I ended the call the way I've ended most things with my family. Calm, short, final. "Have a great wedding," I said, and I hung up. I told myself it didn't matter. We weren't close. I didn't need their chaos. But even when you expect to be erased, it still stings when they do it on purpose. And I had no idea my absence, the one they acted like they wanted, was about to become the reason the wedding stopped. The rehearsal dinner was the night everything cracked. I wasn't there. I wasn't supposed to be there. Emily made that very clear. So when my phone started buzzing, I ignored it at first. I was at my kitchen table, laptop open, trying to finish an assignment. Nothing about their wedding felt like my responsibility anymore. Then I saw the caller ID. My dad. "Once is unusual, 7 times is panic." I answered. His voice didn't sound like him. "Michelle," he said, "you need to come. Right now." I sat up straight. "What happened?" "It's about Emily and Jonathan," he repeated. "Just come." I didn't move. "Dad," I said, "I'm not invited to this wedding, remember?" There was a pause. Then he said the sentence that stopped my breath. "He won't marry her unless you're there." I thought I misheard. "What?" Before he could explain, my mom called. She was crying, really crying. "You have to help your sister," she kept saying. "Please." She needs you. It was surreal. For months, they'd been fine without me. Fine when I was left out. Fine when I was blamed. But now that the story was falling apart, suddenly I mattered. Then Emily called. Her voice was wrecked, like she'd been crying so hard she couldn't breathe. "Jonathan asked where you were," she said, "right when he walked in front of everyone." I stayed quiet. "He found out you weren't invited," she continued. "And he didn't yell. He just got cold." Emily sounded terrified. "He said he can't marry someone who would treat her own sister like that," she said. "He said he's been watching how we talk about you, how we treat you." The room I was sitting in felt very still. "He said he doesn't want to join a family that can erase someone and call it normal," she whispered. "He said it's toxic." Toxic, a word my family never used for themselves, a word they saved for other people, and now it was pointed at them. Emily kept talking, and then I understood why she called me. She didn't call to apologize. She called to recruit me. "Michelle," she pleaded, "just come, just talk to him." I didn't answer. "We can fix this," she rushed. "Tell him you didn't want to come. Tell him you chose not to be invited. Tell him it was your idea." There it was. Not regret. Damage control. She wanted me to rewrite the truth in real time so she could keep the wedding, keep the image, keep the life she'd planned. I listened to her breathing on the other end. Then I spoke slowly so my voice wouldn't shake. "I won't lie for you, Emily." She made a sound like she'd been slapped. "You told me I wasn't invited," I said. "You said it out loud. You meant it. And now you want me to pretend it never happened." "He'll listen to you," she cried. "He trusts you." I swallowed. "Maybe he trusts me because I've never given him a reason not to," I said. "And maybe he doubts you because you have." She started begging, promising, spiraling. I didn't match her energy. "I'm not coming," I said, "and I'm not fixing what you broke." Then I ended the call. I sat there for a long moment, staring at my dark phone screen, and for the first time in my life, I felt something I wasn't used to feeling. Not rage, not triumph. Clarity. Jonathan didn't refuse to marry Emily because he wanted me. He refused because he finally saw what I'd lived with, how easy it was for them to cut someone out, how quickly they agreed on a villain, how calmly they demanded a lie to protect a perfect story. The wedding wasn't falling apart because I wasn't there. It was falling apart because the truth was. The next morning, my phone started lighting up again. My parents, Emily, and people I barely knew, all saying the same thing. "Just talk to him. Fix this. Be the bigger person." It was strange how fast the story traveled, and how neatly it made me responsible. My dad finally called again, and this time I answered. He didn't say hello. "Are you proud of yourself?" he asked. I stared at my ceiling. "Proud of what?" "Your sister is falling apart," he snapped. "Jonathan won't take her calls. Everyone's talking. This is humiliating." Humiliating. Not wrong, not cruel, just embarrassing. That told me everything. "You want me to lie," I said. He didn't deny it. "You don't have to call it a lie," he replied. "You just need to smooth it over," as if my whole life had been something they could iron flat. My mom got on the line. "Michelle," she cried, "please, just tell Jonathan you didn't want to go. Tell him you chose not to be invited." I kept my voice calm. "So Emily bans me from her wedding," I said. "Accuses me of trying to take her fiancé, and now you want me to tell everyone it was my idea." My mom sniffed. "She's stressed," she insisted. "You know she didn't mean it." "She meant it enough to say it out loud," I said. "She meant it enough to leave me out and let all of you act like it was normal." My dad cut in. "This isn't the time to make a point," he said. "This is the time to help your sister." There it was again. Emily gets protected, I get assigned. I took a breath and said the word I'd never been allowed to say in this family. "No." The line went quiet for a second. "No," I repeated. "I'm not going there. I'm not talking to him. And I'm not lying." My dad's voice rose. "You're being selfish." I nodded once, even though he couldn't see it. "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe I'm done being used to keep Emily comfortable." My mom's voice turned sharp through her tears. "You're going to lose your family." That used to scare me. It didn't anymore. "I've been losing you for years," I said. You just didn't notice until you needed something. I ended the call before I could be pulled back into it. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. Saying no wasn't cruel. It was overdue. In the days after the rehearsal dinner, my family kept calling, not to ask how I was doing, not to apologize, not to reflect, to convince me to help, to make the situation look cleaner, to get Emily back what she lost. And that's when I understood something I'd avoided for years. They didn't miss me. They missed the version of the family where I stayed quiet. Emily tried a few more times, sometimes crying, sometimes angry, sometimes sounding almost reasonable, like if she just found the right tone, I'd fold. But I didn't. I stopped answering. I stopped explaining. I stopped volunteering myself as the buffer between their choices and their consequences. I didn't celebrate the wedding falling apart. I didn't feel victorious. I felt sad in a clean way, sad that it took a public moment for anyone to notice how I'd been treated. Sad that my sister's fear turned into cruelty so quickly. Sad that my parents could watch it happen and still ask me to lie. But sadness isn't the same thing as going back. I kept my distance. I focused on school. I stayed close to the few people who actually felt like family, the ones who didn't require me to shrink to earn a place. And little by little, something shifted inside me. The old voice that said, "Maybe it's me," got quieter. The old habit of bracing for criticism eased up. The constant need to prove I was good faded, because I finally stopped asking for permission to exist. What happened with Jonathan wasn't a romance. It wasn't a secret connection. It was a mirror. He saw what my family had trained me to accept, and he refused to build a life on top of it. That's the part I carry forward. Not the chaos, not the embarrassment, not the blame. Just the lesson. Boundaries aren't punishment. They're protection. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop cleaning up messes you didn't make. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more stories.